Hello music makers, welcome back. Today we're doing a sound recreation challenge. Paul wanted to know if I could remake the square lead sound from Alan Fitzpatrick's We Do What We Want. Awesome track. I know it well because when it came out, almost every DJ I worked with wanted to reference it. And I was asked to recreate it in one session, but failed. It wasn't a problem in the end because in attempting to make it, we found a different sound, which was just as cool, and they went with that instead to save time. But it's always annoyed me that I never quite got there. So I've been looking forward to tackling this one. Let's go. Now, I actually think this is a sample, not a synth, possibly two or more layered samples. My nostalgia bells are ringing very loudly. I'm convinced this is a sample from an old Rave track. I just can't find which one. In fact, I seem to remember one of the reasons I didn't manage to recreate it the first time is because I spent so long trying to find out where it was from. Not today, though. I'm confident we can make this with a synth, especially one as powerful as the free Vital. Let's get stuck in. Okay, the first thing we need to do is find a clean extraction, because there's actually two sounds running here. We have this beep that runs all the way through, and that runs over the top of the riff that we want. So if you listen to this stab, for example, you can hear the after echo of this. So we don't want to make things too hard for ourselves. We want to find a cleaner one than that. Also, there's this white noise going over the top. That's not part of the sound. We want a clean extraction. And there is a good one here at about 2 minutes 20. There. So we're going to take that one and use that. Now, there's not just a sound challenge element to this, there's actually a little bit of a musical challenge too. Because what we're hearing in this stab sound is not actually just one note. It's not playing a chord either. It's just two notes, two very strong harmonics, if you will. At this point in time, I don't know if they are part of the same waveform or if they are two different oscillators or two tones that are being layered. We'll have to find that out later, but I can hear two distinct tones. It's exactly the same thing as an organ bass. If you've seen my video on organ bass, it's the same thing. So if you try to find the pitch of this, I've just got a sine wave here so I can judge pure pitch without getting confused by other harmonics of other waveforms. If you try to find that note, probably most of you will end up here. Right? Hopefully you can hear those match. But what you're hearing there is an upper harmonic. It's not actually the main note. There's stuff underneath that. The real tones, those of you on good speakers might be able to hear this, the real tone is all the way down here. It's an F-sharp 0. Let me play that up the octave so you can hear better on smaller speakers. That's also in there. Hopefully you can hear that. If not, you don't need my ear training, actually, to hear that. You can just look on an FFT spectrum, and straight away you can see, if I bring up another spectrum so you can see what I'm playing, this is what we're hearing. It's this one, this C sharp up here, that's this. 281 hertz-ish, C sharp, whereas the actual fundamental, what we call the fundamental, is down here. It's F sharp 1. Well, it says F sharp 1 on span here, but it's actually F sharp 0 in Ableton. There's another F sharp here, the octave, what we call the first harmonic. So our main four harmonics are these two F sharps here. So the actual note being pressed is F sharp. This is a harmonic. It's a fifth tone. What we call the harmonic series is fundamental, first harmonic. Your second harmonic is a fifth above, which is, so this is a C sharp here. This tone is an octave above that one. And then we have this tone up here, G sharp. So that would be a fifth above this C sharp, not the first fifth interval, this one. Now we can't hear that one as prominently for several reasons. The first reason is it's not a very good relationship to F sharp. This is a ninth compared to F sharp, whereas this is a fifth. That's very strong. The ratio of F sharp to C sharp is 1.5. It's a very pure mathematical ratio. Also, you can see up here, see all this, what I would call a furry pattern? Hairy, if you will. compared to these pure spikes here, what this indicates is noise. So this up here is buried in a lot of noise, whereas down here we have much more of a distinct harmonic pattern. Something above here is causing a lot of noise. That could be all kinds of things. I'll get to that in a minute. But the reason we can't hear that is it's starting to get buried in lots of noise just above it. This is acting as a very spiky, high-mid, transient, noisy hit. It's part of the appeal of the sound, the attack of it. That bark, that's what you're hearing there. And it's masking this harmonic. But you can hear it if you listen out for it. Can you hear it now? So, we have some clues to be going on with. We know there's two main tones, the F sharp and the C sharp. These are probably harmonics. My first attempt is going to be start with a waveform that starts on F sharp and then maybe add this tone in, unless I can get a waveform that has a strong harmonic up here, but that's going to take some searching for. So let's get cracking. Okay, I've just spotted another clue, which is worth mentioning. This tail off of high frequencies up here, that might give us a clue as to a filter, a low-pass filter. Low-pass meaning lets the low frequencies pass, cuts the highs. Because a noisy waveform like this, you can hear it's quite aggressive, right? That doesn't sound like it would naturally tail off like this. If you look at just a simple saw wave, it goes infinitely. Right? So something's being cut, I think. And this is going to give us a clue as to what type of filter we have, because we can measure this. If we pick a point on the graph, let's pick 5K here. That's measuring at about minus 60 decibels on this scale over here. So at 5K, we're at minus 60. If we double that frequency, that will be 1 octave. So at 10K, that's the octave for 5K. Don't know what the pitch is, doesn't matter. Where are we at 10K? Minus 84. Perfect. So that tells me 24 decibels over 1 octave. That's how filters are measured. If I enable our filter here, see this number? This is your decibels per octave. It's how steep the filter is. So we know, or we have a very educated guess, that a 24 dB per octave filter is involved. Where are we starting? It looks like it starts about here, doesn't it? 3.5K. So we're going to put this at 3.5 thousand hertz. About there for now. So no matter what waveforms we play with, hopefully our filter is in a similar place. I can't hear a filter envelope on this one. I'm not hearing a which would indicate something starting with high frequencies and then being taken away. I'm not hearing this kind of thing. I'm not hearing that kind of thing. It seems static, luckily for us. So 3,500 at 24 decibels. I might have to tweak this later because we don't know at what point that 24 decibels is measured. But I'm going to start there. That's a strong clue as to a 24 decibel per octave filter. Now, we have to guess at what kind of waveforms we're looking at. Because this is not even in any way, we know it's not a pure waveform like a sine, saw, square, or triangle, any of the basic ones. It's more complex than that. So it's not going to be that simple. There's going to be a lot of trial and error involved. But what I have noticed, speaking of saw waves, if you watch a saw wave harmonic series, which is, it's just a normal harmonic series, what you see in most sounds, whereby you get the fundamental pitch, what we call the fundamental here. The first harmonic is always an octave. That's the same here. The very next harmonic after that, the second harmonic, is a fifth above the first harmonic instead of an octave. So this is a C sharp now, C sharp here, as you can see. The third harmonic is always another octave above this octave. So this is another F sharp related to the fundamental. So this is following the same pattern. Then we get a major third, which is an A sharp. There's our A sharp. Then we get another fifth, but an octave above the one below that, obviously. Another C sharp. There it is. That's the strong harmonic we were talking about earlier. And so on and so on. This is following the harmonic series of a normal sound, which we can get from a saw wave, just not in these proportions, which is basically how tone works. The proportion of the harmonics and how they behave over time is how a sound works, if you didn't know. And then above here, above about 800, it gets very noisy, very hairy. this relationship here, Paul did mention he called this a square lead, and I think he's hearing this because if we add this C sharp in as a separate tone, that's 1 octave, 2 octaves, and a fifth. So that's 12, 24, and a fifth is 7, so that's 31. If we add that in, see it there? To get that harmonic, which is a G sharp, it can't be a saw wave, because a saw wave will give us another octave of C sharp, which is here, this one. And that's way too low. See? So we know if it is an added tone, it can't be a saw. But one trait of the square wave is that the first harmonic is missing. You get only what's called odd harmonics. So a G sharp, it would be the first harmonic of a square wave. It'd be like this F sharp be missing this one. If this was based on a square, we wouldn't have this one here. We'd go straight to this one, first C sharp. So if I put this in, we now have that G sharp up there. So this, it's starting to resemble something similar. Let me balance this out. That's close. Not in sound, but in terms of the general pattern. So what we're hearing in the original sound, we have definitely some noisy layer of some description is in there. I may add a noise layer here, just some white noise for now, maybe filter it above 800. We could try that. These are going to go straight to filter 2. This is going to be a high pass filter from about 800. We'll send our noise to that, filter 1. And then these are going to get low pass. Everything is going to get low pass. We're going to say include filter 1 here. So this passes into this one. And we want 24 decibels per octave at 3,500. So that could be in there. I'm not hearing it as a sustained tone though, like maybe that's dynamic. So maybe that's on an envelope. So maybe we could spike that with a shape like this. So that might form some of our attack. I'm noticing these harmonics, this first harmonic of the square wave is higher than its fundamental. So that can indicate, could be distortion, could be just EQ. It definitely sounds distorted, doesn't it? So we're going to be playing with distortions at some point. I'm going to put a spike there, just for now. And let's hear some distortions. Let's turn this down. There's no compensation on the vital. That's a soft clipper. Let's try a folder. No. There might be something in there. I'm not sure. The distortion might come before the filter. I might have to filter here and distort up there because, as you can hear, distortion is just going to add more and more harmonics, and we're getting brighter than the original by distorting it like this. So it's either a different type of distortion that Vital won't give us, or I might have to do it in a different order. Now, what could be causing this kind of interference? We could layer, say, another oscillator, like a saw, and in order to get these to start cancelling each other, I'm going to change the octave. So this is going to go 1 octave up. And if I start playing with the phase, so they start to phase cancel. Let me try some different types of waveforms here. Nope, not giving me what I want. I might try some FM. We need some of that growl. It's either coming from, like I say, distortion, or there's some kind of intermodulation reaction, which is giving us some harmonics stronger than others. Ah, this is interesting. So frequency modulating from a saw wave sounds like it's increasing in pitch. What if I put this back on the bass octave and then FM into a similar pitch? like that. The problem is, if this was a square, maybe a triangle would do the job, because that has this one here, but it's not very strong. So we'd have to do a lot of EQing, which doesn't feel right. I don't want to rely on EQ too much, because I could just EQ out these harmonics, but as soon as we change pitch, as soon as we change note, that EQ position won't make sense anymore. So I'm not going to rely on EQ to shape the sound. We have to do this at the waveform level. What I'm thinking, if we take the square again, Vital has a low pass, high pass on the actual oscillators themselves. It applies a filter directly to the waveform. So if I take off the upper harmonics, you see, if we just keep removing harmonics from the square wave, we end up with the purest tone, the sine. So if I take the higher harmonics off this square, so we're just left with those first two. There we go. So that's getting somewhere. Let me try and play with a few different types of saw waves. See if I can get something to match this pattern a little more.
2 hours later.
Okay, so I found this quad saw, which is morphable into this kind of pattern. And around here, it's displaying a lot of the same traits. But now, when I add my low-pass square wave, I no longer get the same harmonics out of it when I am using FM. It's still not quite anything like. You can hear the bare bones of it starting to take shape, but it's still not like that. So I'm going to try something else. Okay, change of plan. I've hit a wall there, but I've had another idea. Instead, we're going to cheat. I'm not going to sample it. What I'm going to do is basically try to make the waveform by eye. What you can do in Vital and Serum and a few other wavetable synths is adjust harmonics independently of the waveforms. So if I edit this waveform here, we get this window. We need to select where we are on the this section. So I don't want to be adjusting the first one, which is the sine wave. I want the saw wave. So I need to be adjusting the saw. So that's over here. So we select the saw, which is here. As you can see, it's giving us the saw. What I can do now is per harmonic. You see, I can find that C sharp. I'm going to basically try and copy by eye these three a week. I'll fast forward for you guys, so this isn't too painful. Okay, I think we're getting there. We've ended up with that. As you can see, and here, we're getting a lot closer now. Listen to the original. So I can still hear something else adding to the tone. It sounds like an acid bark in the background. You can almost hear it's like an organ plus acid. The more I dive into these harmonics, the more I'm hearing clearly the makings up of the tone. Either that or I'm just going insane and I'm kind of lost in the matrix. But we've ended up with a very similar waveform here, all from just one waveform. I'll have to adjust the noise level later, I think, but what I want to try now is some kind of acidy, barky thing. I'm still hearing FM, so I'm going to have the second oscillator FM from this one. Maybe we'll play with the pitch. There's something like that in there. Maybe the tone I'm FMing from, frequency modulating from, is the fifth. Now we're getting somewhere. Now we are getting somewhere. Leave it with me. Let me tweak. Okay, I've had a play around. This is what I've come up with. Also, I was listening to the original waveform in stereo. Big mistake. Top tip, make things easy for yourself. Listen to the mono component. I've muted the sides. It does affect your judgment slightly. You can listen to the sides on their own, make sure there's nothing crucial in there to the sound. I'm just mostly hearing reverb and echo in there. So I could try and hear the purer sound a little better, just listening to the mid component, the mono component of it, as it were, comparing to that. Not too bad. There's something in there. So I ended up square FM'd to a sine. The sine is 1 octave up. The square is 1.5 octaves up. I think if I find the right kind of distortion for this, we're good to go. I was just auditioning a delay. I can hear it kind of tails off. It only seems to be 1 echo. Let me play the line. You can hear we're very close. We're very close. So echo good. Distortion. Let's put that before the echo. You see, I was playing with spiking a little bit of the sine folding drive. But I don't think I'm hearing that. I think I'm hearing some kind of clipping. So I'm going to go through a few clippers and distortions and see what I can find. Okay, I've tried quite a few, about 10, and the best one seems to be the 3 kilohertz distortion. It's just called distortion in the overdrive setting, the default. I've turned down the drive a little bit, but that's going to depend on your input volume from the plugin, so yours may differ. Dynamics up a touch, and at about halfway, it gives us just enough of that bite I was looking for. Is it out? Exactly what I was looking for. That was the clipping I could hear. Now, if your DAW can send envelopes to plugins, like Ableton can, I know Bitwig can too. If you can spike the mix control, like this, as if it was part of the synth, that sounds even better in my opinion. So then only the clipping is at the very start. I like that. And a bit of stereo touch for some fake width, mono safe width. Add a little bit of reverb. I've got charm verb here. And we're pretty close. If I play back the original line. Okie dokie. Close enough for jazz, as they say. Hopefully you learned something. If you did, you know what to do. Press one of the buttons. It helps me out. There's a link in the description to buy me a coffee, and the link to this patch will also be there. And until next week, I will see you in the comments. Bye-bye.